Hello again. It's been at least a fortnight since my last video, but I've been dealing with the turmoil and drama that is a West Virginia primary election. And just in case anybody who doesn't know me might draw the wrong conclusion, I am not a politician, but I am adjacent to more than a few. In any event, good to be back talking about books again. And for this video, I thought I would do a video about a couple of days of book hunting uh, that I did manage to sneak in last weekend. Um, I went to several locations, including a couple that I've never been to before, and it proved a very productive hunt. Um, but instead of just showing you a pile of books, which I will do anyway, but instead of just doing that, I decided maybe I'll give you a little insight into why it is I select the stuff that I do decide to keep. Um, as you may be aware, I am an avid book collector or accumulator in days gone by for myself, but more so now for other people or places. Um, and uh, Early in the week, as I said, I went to several locations. I probably looked at literally thousands of books. And out of those thousands of books, I kept a little more than 50. Um, and The purpose of this video is more to give some insight into what I'm looking for when I'm hunting. And please stay tuned until the end, because at least to my opinion, the coolest of the cool of what I found will appear at the end of the video. First off, uh, like I say, in old days when I was just collecting for myself, I wasn't nearly as organized, and it was easier to immediately decide, hey, I want this or I don't want that. If it's going into my personal collection, I know what I'm interested in. I know what I have and want. Um, and the only tool I had to kind of keep me organized on that was a spreadsheet that detailed my collection, which at peak was a little over 3,000 books. And I only started that because I was starting to get duplicates, thinking to myself, do I have this book? And then getting it and realizing, no, I do have that book. Now I'm going in the other direction. I've given away hundreds of books in the last couple of years. But as I said, most of the time now my hunting is going to individuals other than myself. There will be some exceptions in this video, but I'll even talk about how I decide on those books I'm going to keep. First off, organization. I got myself a little cheap journal book, and inside I've cut and pasted books and lists of things to be on the lookout for. I have it duplicated on my phone, but this is more of a mnemonic device. This helps me keep all those author and title names in my head, so that if I'm looking at hundreds of books on a shelf in a thrift store or in a pile at a library book sale, those names will pop, hopefully, and I'll be able to get what I'm after. Um, in this case, as I said, went to several old sources that I always go to, a thrift shop that I commonly hunt, um, local libraries, whatnot. But like I said, early in the week, I got to go to a library I'd never been before, who happened to be getting ready for a big sale this coming Saturday, um, and also to a thrift store in that same town that I had never been to before. And the bulk of the books I'm going to show you came from those two locations. Where to start? Um, let's see. First off, uh, let's do books for me. And there is a pile. Uh, uh, Greatest Poems and a selection of short stories of Edgar Allan Poe. I recently donated a large hardback version of this and found this to kind of replace it. I love these stories and the poetry. Wanted to keep it. Uh, and this is a much more manageable form than the huge brick of a hardback I used to have. So this is going back to me. This is basically a replacement for something I donated recently. And in the same vein, these two volumes, Plays of Tennessee Williams, in the hard-clad plastic that you get from library book sales, from ex-library uh, offerings. These plays replace these three individual volumes and actually add more to the collection than I had already. These will be going out to donate. So I'm donating 3 books, keeping 2. Mm. These 2 books I found at 2 different thrift stores, and they're both keepers. Books I do not have already, but will be staying with me. An old game manual from the early 90s. Being an avid gamer and hoping to indulge in role-playing game activities this evening. Um, might take this one to show off, but yeah, this is an old school uh, game book from 30 years ago and cost almost nothing. I'm of course going to snag that. And this little volume is a self-published unit history for the 29th Virginia Infantry Regiment from the Civil War. I accumulate these. Some are really good, some are not so good, but I always try and pick these up at least until I get a chance to examine them. Um, really have a passion for studying the Civil War, particularly local history, and this is a unit that is more local to where I am. So looking forward to looking at that. Uh, okay. Uh, there's another book that I'm keeping for myself, but I think I'm going to save it to the very end because it's something that's on a short list for me, things I just desperately want to keep. So instead, tell you what, let's move on to, yeah, something of a keep. Okay. Um, I already had this in my collection, Washington Irving's sketchbook in a Oxford Classic paperback. I found this one, which is one of those ex-library Signet Classic copies. I'm going to keep this and donate this. This will be uh, easier for the Hatter bookstore to keep and sell, have in their inventory for classics. Always on the lookout for classics for the bookstore. We're in a community with several colleges, and this stuff tends to sell, I think, in part because of that. All right. Next are 3 classics that are going once again to the Hatter Bookshop, Winesburg, Ohio, by Sherwood Anderson. Oh, if you can see, with an introduction by John Updike. I already had a signet of this, and I was only going to keep one. I decided to donate this one because I think it's a little more saleable. Lord of the Flies, a book I had to read in high school, which I thoroughly enjoyed and I thought was very thought-provoking. This is a penguin, regular penguin line of this book with a very evocative cover. That's going to be donated to the bookstore. Just So Stories by Rudyard Kipling. I love Kipling. Already have this, and once again, it was one of those where I took a look at the one I already had, and the new one I got, the better copy goes to the bookstore. I'm just, at this point, interested in reading it or going back to it more than having it as an attractive object. This is going to be more marketable, so once again, it goes to the shop. Where to begin? Um, oh, yes. Another one for me, and which I will probably keep. This is Lincoln's Boys. It is a book predominantly about John Hay and John Nicolay, who were Abraham Lincoln's personal secretaries. Um, And some would argue the reason, a large part of the reason we think of Abraham Lincoln as being one of the greatest presidents in our history is because of the work of these two men. Um, Lincoln had a somewhat uneven reputation during his lifetime, and of course, the fact that he was martyred added to his reputation and expanded it immensely. And there is no getting around the fact that Abraham Lincoln was a gifted administrator and politician, one of the best our nation has ever seen in that regard. But these two gentlemen did a very uh, flattering uh, biography and other writings about Lincoln after his death, and they really cemented, I think, his reputation in our zeitgeist about how we feel about Lincoln. Uh, uh, as I often joke, um, the figures from history who had the best PR firms are the ones that we remember the most fondly, and these two gentlemen were his PR firm, and they did a great job. Anyway, I'm very interested to look at this book and read it, so this is a keeper for me. Okay. Let's look at kid stuff. A lot of the books I tend to take the Hatter's Way are books for younger readers, and when I'm looking for that kind of literature for books for the Hatter to have, it has to be marketable. Oftentimes, you want it to be very popular. Adaptations are always something you look for. But so I have to keep in tune with both what they say sells and just like what, the public is going to be most interested in. And I found some interesting stuff. I've got two junior Star Trek novels, prequels, and sequels. Um, uh, I have a, well, complicated relationship with both the prequel movies and the sequel movies. But these are junior novel versions of these two films. The last Star Wars film thus far, and the first of the prequels, with of course cover art, reminiscent of the movies. So these two are always gonna be popular. I grab Star Wars anywhere where I can find it, and it sells. Star Wars is still immensely popular. Ah, while we're talking Star Wars, I found this. This is a sticker puzzle book, um, and it looks like it's completely intact. There are the puzzles you can make from the book, and they are sticker puzzles. There is as you can see, kind of from this cover image, there is an image where the pieces go, and this is aimed at younger people. The young person who gets this takes the stickers and works a puzzle just like a traditional puzzle, but it's stickers on paper. Like I say, this one looks like it's intact and unused. So this is going to sell very easily. Okay. Continuing on with children's literature for the Hatter. Um, Del Rey paperback of the first of the Wizard of Oz books. Most people don't realize that I know there were more than 12 books in the Oz series. And most people have not heard of anything beyond the first. This is the original Wizard of Oz, the one that the movie adaptation in the 30s with Judy Garland was made from, as well as the musical The Wiz. But they're based on this original novel. And these are the covers that I remember as a teenager. Del Rey did all of the books with similar art to this. I always thought the art was very attractive, interesting, bright. It really popped. In any event, this one's going to the Hatter. Um, a Newbery Honor book, also adapted because of Winn-Dixie. Uh, oh, the film has got to be at least 15 years old now, but this was in really good shape. And like I say, that little Newbery emblem, it always calls out to me when I'm trying to find books for the Hatter, because Newbery books are always popular. and adapted a couple of different times. The first two books in the Lemony Snicket series, a series of unfortunate events, I've started to see these. I found these first two. I've seen some others in this kind of edition for the other books in the series, but they were not in good shape. And as you can see, these are in pretty nice shape. And these continue to be popular, and these editions are supposed to have additional text and illustrations that aren't in other editions. So hopefully make them a little more attractive to buy. I have been told that if I can find Dog Man out in the wild, particularly in as good a condition as this, to get it. You know, graphic novels, I believe by the same author as the Captain Underpants books, and I'm told these do not last long. Um, that they are very popular with young audiences. So that one. One I had not heard of, but the same kind of style, a graphic novel for young readers. I figured take a chance. Um, so I picked up this one. And this one is for young readers. It may not go to a young reader. In fact, I would be shocked if it does. This is an early number in the Nancy Drew books, obviously. This is number 7, Clue in the Diary. But this one is not an ex-library copy, completely intact, and it has that. And that's a sign of a very early edition. Uh, this book is older than me, probably close to 60 years old. Um, and these are very collectible. A lot of adults collect these. People who love the books as children gravitate to these, and this is a very, very clean copy. I would say almost pristine. Um, this will probably get listed and not put on directly on the store shelves uh, because they'll want this one to reach a larger audience. Very, very nice book, very collectible. To go next. Ah, um, oh, while I'm going through the kids' books, one of the Percy Jackson books. I believe this is the second one, Sea of Monsters. In pretty good shape. And there's an ongoing adaptation of the works of Rick Riordan, Percy Jackson stories. Once again, it's got that double zip. It was popular on its own merit. It's been adapted, which is also being well received. So no brainer. Anytime I get one, especially one in this good of shape, if I find it out in the wild, I'm going to grab it. And while we're on the idea of adaptations, Where the Crawdads Sing by Delia Owens. I have hauled this multiple times, and it's one of those books that you get it to the store, and then the store sells it very quickly. So at least for the foreseeable future, if I find a copy of this in this good a shape, it's going to get hunted. And one of my personal favorites, Tom Harris's books, Red Dragon and Hannibal, books in his popular um, Hannibal Lecter series. Uh, I've hauled a whole lot worse than this. These are in pretty good shape. But I feel sometimes like Thomas Harris is kind of captured by his character, the same way that Arthur Conan Doyle got captured by Sherlock Holmes. I think Thomas Harris is probably for the rest of his writing life going to be enthralled by Hannibal Lecter. People are intrigued by the character and continue to buy the books and watch adaptations of it. So Thomas Harris in this good a shape, it's going to get hunted. Oh, this one is a classic. This is the works of Zora Neale Hurston. This is her folklore memoirs and other writings. Now, anytime I see this cover, well, or this style of cover, this is a Library of America classic. I have a bunch of these. You can almost see where they start. In fact, these right here in the slip covers are the deluxe versions, and then beginning on, you see books like this. And this is one of my preferences for keeping something in a classic line. And in fact, I already have this book in one of these slipcovers. So this would be one that I would keep if I didn't already have an edition I like better. But yeah, they're printed on acid-free paper, very durable. Really neat end papers. And with every Library of America book, you get a ribbon bookmark. This will find a home in the Hatter's Classic section. These sell well because collectors like this publisher. They like this imprint, and it's fairly popular. Like I say, this one's in pretty good shape too. Where shall I go next? Okay. Oh, let's continue in that same vein. Adaptations and stuff that just plain sells. Um, Lessons in Chemistry, which of course is, I believe, Apple TV is doing the adaptation of this, starring Brie Larson. This is at least second time I've hauled this book for the store. Uh, Very popular, and so as long as it is, this is going to be one that I grab every time in the wild. And like I say, it's in real nice condition, kind of thing I'm looking for. Now these, all right, I have standing orders for years now. If I see Harry Potter out in the wild, if it's in any kind of readable shape to grab, and these are beyond that. These are both in pretty good shape. The fifth and sixth books, the fifth and final books in the series, the original series, in nice hardbacks. As you can see, this one's a little more dinged, but no, both very readable, very collectible, and you go with what sells. If you have a bookstore, you've got to be able to carry what the public wants. Harry Potter is still very popular, so these are no-brainers. Obviously, I'm going to grab these if they're in the wild. All right. Oh, these big tomes. Cassandra Clare. Found all of these at the library sale from the library that I'd never been to before. And these are books. Mm. These are books that, particularly in this kind of shape, I'm always going to try and grab. Um, they sell fairly well, and these are in just such great shape. They're ex-library, but they're very good condition ex-library. Believe me, the end is in sight. Some odd stuff, odds and ends. Um, Kristen Hanna, one of her old books in real nice shape. Comfort and Joy. Looks like a Christmas story, or at least a holiday time story. This is actually for an individual. This won't go to the bookstore. This I have earmarked for actually a fellow book hunter. Um, she is on lookout for my stuff, and I tend to be on the lookout for her stuff. And she's a big Kristen Hanna fan. I don't know if she needs this one, but she gets it offered first, and if she doesn't want it, um, the bookstore would certainly be offered it as well. Next is two books in a genre that if I had to pick a genre that I could never read again, if I pick a genre, any genre that you're not allowed to read any books from again, this would be it. Self-help. Uh, this is a book that I might have been forced to read uh, in college many, many years ago. It's supposed to be very good. I own a copy, just have never read it, but very popular. Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance. Um, I was in a different section, but I was once required to take a class on legal ethics, and this was used in the curriculum for one of the sections of that class. Fortunately, not mine. That professor was a little different. Obviously, if he's making law students read Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance, you know you're in for a different kind of trip. But it's in good condition. Like I say, as far as I know, it's still fairly popular, so I'm going to see if the bookstore's interested. Uh, Malcolm Gladwell. He's written several books. Even if you've never heard of Malcolm Gladwell, you've probably heard of his rule, the idea that to become an expert in any endeavor, you have to practice it for, what does he say, 20,000 hours, which comes to be several years of practice time to become a master. I forget which one of his books where he espouses that idea. But in any event, this is one of his books, and I would tend to lump his books into the category of self-help. But Malcolm Gladwell's very popular. This one will need a little cleaning, but I think it's in pretty good shape otherwise. So this is going to go to the store. This one I picked up for a couple of reasons. This is Strange Tales of Dark and Bloody Ground. It's uh, ghost story set in Tennessee and Kentucky. Uh, so this might appeal to several different kinds of audiences. Took a chance on it, um, and when we get to the end, you'll have an idea of why I'm willing to take a chance on it. But no, it looked interesting. There's always a market for tales of the unknown kind of stuff, supernatural, ghost hunter kind of things, and hopefully this will find a home there at the store. But if not, I might keep it for a while myself. But in any event, we are getting down to the wire. Let's do these. All right. In my book journal, there are a list of authors or subjects that I grab all the time. You've seen some of it already. If I find Star Wars stuff, if it's in any kind of shape, I'm going to grab it. Stephen King. In fact, even if it's in kind of mediocre shape, grab it. Um, uh, Anything by J.K. Rowling, but particularly Harry Potter, no brainer. You're going to grab. Um, and another author or subject on that list is J.R.R. Tolkien. Now, this is a graphic novel adaptation of The Hobbit. I had this same book in an early edition, maybe the first edition. The original cover was one of Tolkien's own illustrations uh, of Hobbiton and Bilbo Baggins' Hobbit hole. Um, this is a much later edition, obviously, and the art's interesting. It's not my thing. Um, I kind of had, I don't know, not so much issues, but the art style I thought was, well, it wasn't my thing, but it was Tolkien, so I loved it back in the day. You can see here's a scene, if I can show it. Bilbo and Gollum, Riddles in the Dark. In any event, this one I'm handling very gingerly. So as you can tell, it's not in the best of shape. There are loose pages, um, and I don't know if necessarily the bookstore can sell this, but there are people who would want to have it, even if it's not sellable, just because of what it is. It's an interesting adaptation of a story that a lot of folks really really love. Oh, and while I'm at it, maybe they can sell it because I remember when the Hobbit movies were first coming out, my sister and I were talking about, oh, well, let's just say we were critical of the idea there were going to be three Hobbit movies. Stretching one book into a trilogy of movies, we thought was a little bit, oh, shall we say, commercializing, self-serving. And I said, with the Hobbit movies coming out, there are going to be people who will paint the word Hobbit on a rock and try and sell it. So for my birthday, she painted the word The Hobbit on a rock and gave it to me for my birthday 10 years ago, 2014. Um, in any event, it's a treasured heirloom. I keep it with my books because it's a rock, so it makes a great bookend. And along with other Tolkien-related items I found, um, a book about The Hobbit. Um, had not heard of this one. Oh, don't know, what the quality of it's going to be, but it's Tolkien, so I grab. This one I think will intrigue me a little more. Um, a Hobbit and a Wardrobe, okay, yeah, a Hobbit, a Wardrobe, and a Great War. This is a story about Tolkien and C.S. Lewis and their friendship. Um, both were veterans of World War One. Both were sole survivors of their circle of friends. They both lost, you know, many friends in the bloodbath that was the Western Front of the First World War. And if you know anything about Tolkien, you know his experiences as a soldier in that war greatly influenced his writing, um, and his conception of the world. Um, but and C.S. Lewis was no different. But this is a book about the two of them, their friendship, and the literary impact of that war on their writing. So I would imagine the shop will want it, but if not, well, I know where it will find a good home. This one I think kind of tricked me. After the King, stories in honor of J.R.R. Tolkien, and I think in my head I thought, well, this is maybe like high quality fan fiction because the writers in here are very good fantasy writers. You've got Stephen R. Donaldson, Peter Beagle, Terry Pratchett, Robert Silverberg, um, Harry Turtledove. I mean, names that I know well. Very good writers. Oh, Paul and Karen Anderson. In any event, um, but I think the premise is these are stories inspired by Tolkien, by other fantasy authors, not necessarily stories set in Middle Earth-like settings, and so maybe that is better. I don't know, but in any event, I grabbed it. It's part of my Tolkien haul for this week. And we're getting down to the end. I got this because it's just so big. uh, Marvel has been publishing these sorts of volumes for a long time. This is, I believe, the sixth volume of the Essential Thor series. In the Essentials, they give you black and white editions of the original comics, but they give you basically a history of a character, and they've done this for many titles. There are similar volumes for like Spider-Man, Iron Man, but no, I just once again got that. Thought it would go well in the Hatter's graphic novel section. This is one that I got basically out of a love for books I read as a young teenager, and that would be Andre Norton's Dragon Riders of Pern series. This was, of course, obviously a reference book for that series, The Dragon Lover's Guide to Pern. Um, um, but actually, Anne McCaffrey. I said Anne Norton, didn't I? In any event, but yeah, yeah, Anne McCaffrey. Shame on me for misspeaking. Um, but anyway, you kind of know you've met the mark as a writer if people are writing guidebooks about your fiction. This one is about 30 years old. It's the first edition, and it retailed for 1995, 30 years ago, which would be probably like $60 in today's money. And I did a little research on this one, just curious about its value, and it's held its value. You can sell this all day long for around $20. So I thought, uh, if they can't sell this in shop, actually this could go to an online customer. But anyway, art is beautiful. You've got interior black and white illustrations. There's our dragons, and this is not and just a quick comment on this series, The Dragon Riders of Pern. This isn't a fantasy story. This is a science fiction story. This is a story about humans who wind up stranded, colonists who wind up stranded on a far off world, far from Earth, and genetically engineer creatures from that planet that become the dragons of Pern. Um, it's one of those kind of stories. Humans who are colonists who eventually lose touch with Earth and forget that they are humans from another world, and just use high science initially to adapt these creatures to help them survive the environment. Very interesting premise, very interesting stories. Kind of shocked that the Dragon Riders of Pern stories have never been adapted in any form that I'm aware of. But I think they would make for good television or film. Okay, we're down to the cool. All right. Uh, one again for me to keep. Um, and to think I saw it on Mulberry Street. Uh, by, of course, Dr. Seuss. And this is part of an ongoing collection project for me. This is one of the six, not banned books, but unpublished books, I think would be a better term. A couple of years ago, the holders of the Seuss copyright decided there were six of his books that were too problematic um, due to content, racial overtones, um, like I say, not safe for modern audiences, references and images. So they just quit publishing them. And this is probably the most popular of those six books. Uh, this is this is a fairly modern edition of this book, but I loved this as a kid. Uh, and it's what Seuss did very well. It's a flight of fancy story. Um, Boy's going on an errand to the store and back home, and in his mind, he makes this very mundane, boring chore into an adventure. And he recounts all the mysterious, wonderful, and obviously colorful adventures he has going back and forth to the store. And I would be remiss if I would not show the image, the singular image and line that probably got this one unpublished. That is, of course, this right here. And as this image is thought to be racially insensitive, and don't necessarily disagree with that. It is racially insensitive. Um, it's a stereotypical illustration. Um, there are problems with the image. Now, there are two ways, in my opinion, that you deal with that in literature or art of any sort. Either we confront it, we acknowledge it, we're honest about it, we have a conversation about it, we express our feelings, critical or not critical, about that art or image. We don't hide it. We don't hide it. Um, you don't make problematic things go away by hiding them in the dark. I think sometimes you have the opposite effect. The people who dwell in the dark, they don't forget. So, bring it out into the light of day. Talk about it, confront it. If you have negative feelings about this book or that image, confront that. Uh, have a dialogue. Uh, Conversation, not censorship. And finally, and I'm sure everyone who's made it this far is thinking, "Oh, thank goodness." Um, but this was just too cool to pass up. Um, uh, there was a famous celebrity chef, Anthony Bourdain, who unfortunately took his own life a few years back. Um, Brilliant chef, uh, um, brilliant writer about travel. And I did not know that he did this sort of thing. But apparently he also wrote fiction. And I found this graphic novel, a collection of 5 stories written by Anthony Bourdain, Tales of Fear and Food from Around the World. Look at that image. So basically, we have horror stories written by this famous chef. Wow, look at this. Okay. Um, five horror stories with food and restaurant themes in a very nice volume. That is so nice. Um, with the artists with Joel Rose, who did the art. But this has appealed to so many people. Um, Anthony Bourdain, of course, did television shows Kitchen Confidential and Parts Unknown. He did an episode, I believe it was of Parts Unknown, locally. I remember seeing it. McDowell County, West Virginia, he did an episode. But I think a very thoughtful writer in person. Uh, we uh, we are less because he had his early end. But yes, this one was just too interesting and cool to pass up. And this is probably the pride of my collection from this hunt from the last week or so. Now, what I showed you was close to 50 books. I have left out several more that I got that I thought kind of had repetitive themes. Um, I looked at, as I said at the beginning, thousands of books. These are the ones I decided to keep. Now, I hope I give you some insight into what what my strategy is for finding books. And also to let you know that book hunting, book accumulating, whatever, book hoarding, whatever you want to call it, does not have to be an expensive process. I did not pay more than, make sure I'm telling you the honest truth here. I don't believe I paid more than $1 for any of these books, and for most of them, it was significantly less. Most of them cost me 50 cents for most of the hardbacks. Some of them were free or traded for, but this pile of books with all this value, both literary, um, entertainment value, and commercial value, I got for much less than you're probably thinking. Um, I know less than $20 for everything I showed you, plus some stuff I didn't show you. Um, so, like I say, if you want to be a book hunter, my advice is get a strategy, particularly if you're hunting for other people. Get a strategy, be open to finding what the world gives you. You can't go out into the world looking for particular things and expect to find them every day. You have to be patient. Obviously, I am looking for particular things. There are some titles where I'm looking for a specific title or a specific edition or a specific style. Um, for instance, one of the projects I'm working on is to help someone collect all of the works of Danielle Steele in hardcovers. And we've had some success. I think we're down to 20-ish books in that project. That's been a fun project. But I can also tell you this, I look through, in a typical week, I will look at 100 Danielle Steele novels, and at this point, maybe find one that is on the list that I need. Um, and obviously, to me, it's great fun. Um, and I've said this before, I'll say it, I'm sure again. Anybody can be a book harvester. Anybody can go to a bookstore. Anybody can go on Amazon and get a book. But the real fun is in book hunting. And I hope I've given you some inspiration to do some of that on your own. Thank you again. Sorry this one has gone on very long, but there was just so much to cover. And I hope to see you guys again soon. Hopefully a whole lot sooner than well, more frequently, shall we say, since we are past the turmoil that was the 2024 West Virginia political primary. But thank you, and you folks have a great day.